The night was heavy with silence, the kind that presses down on you until every small sound feels unnaturally loud. A single stretch of highway cut through the darkness, empty and endless, lit only by the weak glow of a flickering streetlight far behind. On the side of that road stood a lone figure, a hitchhiker with his backpack slung over one shoulder, thumb raised in the air each time a pair of headlights appeared in the distance. But every car that came either roared past without slowing or veered slightly, as though even the drivers themselves didn't want to risk stopping on such a deserted stretch of land. The hitchhiker shifted uneasily, pulling his jacket tighter as the night air grew colder. Hours seemed to crawl by, and the road stretched like it had no end. The feeling of being abandoned, of being swallowed by the empty night, began to sink in. Just when he was about to give up and start walking, a set of headlights appeared far down the road. Unlike the others, this car didn't speed past. Its lights grew brighter, slowing down as it approached, the hum of the engine breaking the suffocating silence. Gravel crunched as the tires rolled to a stop beside him. For the first time all night, the hitchhiker felt a flicker of relief. Finally, someone was willing to help. He stepped closer, squinting against the glare of the headlights, unable to see the driver clearly. The window rolled down with a mechanical whine, and a voice drifted out, calm and inviting. "Need a ride?" In that moment, the hitchhiker felt both grateful and strangely unsettled. The stranger slides into the car, shutting the door with a soft but final click that seems louder than it should. The driver, perhaps trying to shake off the unease of picking up someone in the middle of nowhere, forces a polite smile and presses the accelerator. The car eases back onto the road, swallowed by darkness on both sides. At first, the atmosphere inside the vehicle feels strangely heavy. Neither the driver nor the hitchhiker speaks for a while, and the only sound is the steady hum of the engine and the rhythmic slap of the tires against the asphalt. The silence isn't exactly comfortable. It's the kind that grows thick, urging someone to break it. Eventually, the driver asks the usual, harmless questions. "Where you headed?" Or, "Long night, huh?" The hitchhiker answers, but something about the tone, flat, vague, maybe even too calm, doesn't quite sit right. The headlights stretch across the winding road, carving a path through the night. Every so often, the driver glances at the hitchhiker out of the corner of their eye. There's nothing obviously wrong about him, no strange movements, no threatening gestures, but there's also nothing reassuring. His face is hard to read, half hidden in shadow. The small talk continues, but instead of lightening the mood, it seems to deepen the tension. The hitchhiker's words don't reveal much, and his questions, when he does ask them, feel oddly pointed, as if he's less interested in conversation and more interested in studying the driver. The air grows colder, or at least it feels that way, and the road stretches on endlessly, the dark pressing closer against the windows. This is the moment the journey really begins, not just the ride, but the slow build of dread. What started as a simple act of kindness, or perhaps curiosity, is shifting into something else. The driver can't quite put a finger on why, but deep down, the thought starts to whisper. Maybe picking him up was a mistake. At first, the ride felt almost normal. The hum of the tires on the asphalt filled the silence, and the driver spoke casually, as though they were two strangers making harmless conversation to pass the time. He asked the hitchhiker the usual questions: where he was headed, how long he'd been waiting on the road, what he did for work. His voice was smooth, steady, the kind of voice that put up the appearance of friendliness. But as the minutes slipped by, the questions began to shift. The driver's words grew more personal, digging deeper than small talk usually allows. "Do you live alone?" he asked suddenly, eyes fixed on the road, his tone calm yet oddly curious. The hitchhiker hesitated before answering, brushing it off with a nervous laugh, trying not to sound uneasy. But the driver pressed on. "Anyone waiting for you? A family? A girlfriend? Someone who'll notice if you don't come home tonight?" The air inside the car seemed heavier after those words. The hitchhiker tried to joke, saying something vague, but the driver didn't laugh. Instead, he smiled faintly, just enough to be seen in the glow of the dashboard lights, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The hitchhiker shifted in his seat, suddenly aware of how small the car felt, how far away the road behind them already was. The conversation was no longer harmless. It felt like a quiet test, like the driver was peeling back layers to see what kind of prey he had picked up. And all the while, the car rolled on through the empty night, carrying them deeper into the dark. The hitchhiker sat quietly, watching the ribbon of highway stretch out ahead in a straight, endless line. The steady hum of the engine was almost hypnotic, and for a moment he tried to convince himself that maybe he was just overthinking things, that the driver's strange questions were nothing more than awkward attempts at conversation. But then, without warning, the car slowed. The driver's hands tightened on the wheel as he turned it sharply to the right, steering them off the main highway onto a much narrower road. The smooth blacktop gave way to cracked pavement, and soon even that faded into a rough path hemmed in by thick trees. The headlights cut across the trunks like blades, throwing jagged shadows that seemed to close in around the car. The hitchhiker leaned forward slightly. I thought the highway went straight through. Why are we turning off?" His voice was careful, casual, but underneath it trembled a thread of unease. The driver didn't look at him. His gaze stayed locked on the twisting road ahead. "This way's faster," he said simply, his tone flat, matter-of-fact, "a shortcut." But the hitchhiker knew this stretch of country. He had traveled it before. There were no shortcuts out here, just endless woods and forgotten back roads that led nowhere. His pulse quickened as he realized the highway lights had disappeared behind them, swallowed completely by the dark. Out here, there were no cars, no towns, no witnesses. Only the whisper of branches scraping the sides of the vehicle and the deep black of the forest pressing in from both sides. Every instinct in him screamed that something was wrong. And yet, he stayed silent, trapped between his suspicion and the faint hope that maybe, just maybe, the driver was telling the truth. The forest swallowed the road whole, wrapping the car in a tunnel of darkness. The hitchhiker tried to calm his nerves, but the silence between him and the driver had grown thick, so thick it pressed against his chest. The only sound was the steady rhythm of the tires bumping against the uneven ground and the occasional snap of branches brushing across the sides of the car. He shifted in his seat, pretending to adjust his jacket, but his eyes began to wander, scanning the interior with fresh unease. That's when he noticed it. On the floor near his feet lay a coil of rope, neatly looped, the kind you didn't just keep around by accident. His gaze flicked quickly to the back seat, and his stomach tightened. A large plastic tarp was crumpled there, dark stains smeared across it. They weren't fresh, but they weren't old either. He tried to tell himself it was mud, oil, anything else, but the metallic tang in the air told him otherwise. His breath grew shallow as his eyes traced the inside of the passenger door. Just below the handle, carved into the plastic, were faint marks, deep scratches, like someone had clawed at it in desperation. His hand hovered near the door lock without thinking, only to find it already pushed down, sealed tight. The hitchhiker swallowed hard, throat dry. He turned his head toward the driver, hoping, praying he hadn't noticed the way his body had tensed. The man's face was calm, too calm, illuminated by the dashboard glow. And then, as if sensing the hitchhiker's gaze, the driver turned slightly, offering the faintest smile. It wasn't the smile of a man making small talk anymore. It was the smile of someone who already knew exactly how this night was going to end. The forest road twisted endlessly, the car swallowed by shadows with no sign of escape. The hitchhiker's chest tightened with each passing second, every instinct screaming at him to get out, to run, to do anything before it was too late. His eyes darted to the window, calculating, wondering if he could throw himself onto the gravel while the car was still moving. But the speed was too fast, the trees too close. One wrong leap and he'd be broken before he even had a chance to crawl away. Then, in the distance, a glow appeared. Headlights. Another vehicle was following, its beams stretching long across the trees. For the first time that night, hope flared in the hitchhiker's chest. Maybe he could wave them down, signal for help, anything to break free from the trap he was in. The driver noticed too. His grip on the steering wheel tightened, his jaw flexing. Without warning, he pressed harder on the gas. The engine growled, the car jerking forward as the speed climbed. The hitchhiker clutched the edge of the seat, heart pounding, realizing the man wasn't going to let that other car get close. The woods blurred by in a rush of shadow and light. The hitchhiker's panic rose until he could hardly breathe. He had to do something now. His hand shot to the lock, fumbling desperately, nails digging into the edge until, click, it snapped up. He didn't wait. He flung the door open and hurled himself into the dark. The world spun in a blur of gravel and pain, his body crashing hard against the ground. His ears rang, vision fractured, but through the haze he could still hear the car's tires screeching, the engine howling as it veered off into the night. Then silence. The car was gone. The hitchhiker lay trembling, staring up at the faint glow of the headlights approaching. Relief surged through him as another vehicle finally slowed, pulling up beside him. The driver's door opened, but when the man stepped out, the hitchhiker froze. His blood ran cold. It was the same face, the same driver, the same faint, knowing smile. And the realization hit him like ice in his veins. He hadn't escaped at all. He had only gotten into the wrong car twice. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.